All right. I'm joined as always by my good friend, Joseph LaMagna, frequent guest of this podcast. I like to have him come on at least 1 to 3 times a year, generally for just kind of like a state of the union and catch up on a grab bag of topics. So we're going to try and cover a lot of ground today. But first question for you, Joseph, how's your summer going?
It's good. I feel like I'm rejuvenated by this golf season. I think this golf season's been awesome, and the
Yeah.
last couple haven't been as awesome. I kind of feel like the last two have been pretty flat, and then leading up to that, it was great golf season after great golf season. I feel like we're kind of back. And then the Open Championship, which I know we're going to be talking about, that's always my favorite tournament of the year. I think links golf is the best style of golf. Everything else is either an inferior style or like trying to tap into links golf in a way. I mean, I love the Masters, but even that, like, it's a great tournament, great golf course. I don't think it compares to links golf. So
Yeah.
the fact that we have that coming up at Royal Portrush, which I know we're going to get into, it just makes me excited just thinking about it.
Let's start there. I mean, the couple main things that I wanted to hit with you. I played the ocean course recently, and you have such like just good takes on Pete Dye and Pete Dye Championship golf courses. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my experience playing the ocean course. I definitely wanted to hit on the Open Championship, and then I wanted to just maybe touch a tiny bit on the new PGA Tour CEO and where things stand with LIV. But let's start with the Open. I mean, first question, have you spent much time yet diving into Royal Portrush?
Yeah, I'd say I'm in pretty good shape. I'm not
Your
as
company, by the way, I would say has already put out some great content on it.
yeah, there's I would recommend the video that Fried Egg put out on YouTube. Um I'm pretty well versed on the golf course at this point. I mean, I need to maybe like some of the history and stuff, not as much, which I would like to, which I'll be doing over the next week or so. But in terms of like the holes and mapping them out, taking all the measurements and everything, I've already done all that. So I feel like I'm in pretty good shape there.
So, I know you are somewhat discerning about your information when it comes to the predictive quality of golf courses and your process for mapping them out. I have a process as well, which I have not done yet from Royal Portrush. So, I'm just going to ask you big picture, kind of from a macro level, what type of golf course is this to you? Is this a golf course where you expect an extremely high missed fairway penalty? Is it the type of golf course that feels very driver heavy to you or more positional? And do you think this is more of like the number one way that I think at a very like elementary level for people that are just trying to understand like the big picture stuff about a golf course? I think a way that I like to start is like figuring out the type of player profile. Do you feel like a player profile to you has emerged at Royal Portrush in your early research?
Yeah, I mean, it's a true links test where wind should be a factor. The
Yeah.
bunkers should be legitimately penal. And there's kind of a lot of room out there, not necessarily, I don't mean from like a fairway width
The
standpoint. A lot of
fairways
them,
are narrow.
yeah, like a lot of them are 25, 30 yards wide. It can get a little narrower in certain spots, and the bunkers are often at pretty good distances. But what I mean by there's a lot of space is a decent amount of space between the holes. And if you get far offline, I don't know exactly yet where spectators will be standing, but I mean, from going back and watching footage from 2019, like if you're off, you're not going to get bailed out by trampled down spectator areas.
Yeah.
So, would highly recommend it. It's a little hard to find. I found on YouTube, but
Yeah.
the entire first round of the 2019 Open at Portrush is on YouTube, and I would recommend people go back and watch that. The final round is too. Final rounds are often on YouTube, but the first round's on there. It's like 10 hours. You can learn a lot from watching that, and I would expect it to be set up pretty similarly. I would not expect it to be for distance to be at a premium. I think the guys who are crafty have different types of shots in the bag. Some of the more experienced players, like we saw Justin Rose and Billy Horschel in the mix last year at the Open at Troon. And when the conditions get up and some of the golfers who maybe didn't grow up with TrackMan and know how to hit different types of shots, know how to flight their ball, know how to take spin off. Like, as long as the weather cooperates, we're too far out to know how much weather is going to be a factor here. But I would expect some of the really high quality iron players who are a little craftier to have a good chance here. I think other things that come to mind thinking about the golf course right away, it's cool how it's routed and the
Yeah.
holes go in a lot of different directions. And that's actually probably a pretty underrated part of looking at golf courses, and how it's less susceptible
Because
to a
that
huge
that
split.
totally affects wind.
It affects wind and wave splits. Like, Troon is so out and back that if you catch the wrong wind, you're playing, multiple holes in a row straight into your face. That's not the way that Royal Portrush is laid out. So I wouldn't expect as much of a wave split. We could still get one, like a morning afternoon one for sure, but it's just a little bit less vulnerable to that. Those are the things that kind of stand out to me off the top. The other thing that I don't really know if you can quantify is, I feel like hand strength. Like, Shane Lowry's kind of a burly dude and has great hands. And just from going back and watching, especially if it's cold, like chopping out of some of that tall grass when you get a little offline and being able to hit
That
these.
felt like a necessary component at Troon last year.
I mean, I think there is something to, like, a little bit of raw strength that's not necessarily the same as ball speed. Like, Shane Lowry's got some ball speed, but like, he's kind of just got strong hands. And I think
Yeah.
about guys with strong hands, even like a
Rahm.
Scheffler,
I thought of
Scheffler,
Rahm. Yeah.
Rahm too. But I think Scheffler right up there as well. Like, again, he's not a bomber, but he's got like a pretty impressive amount of hand strength.
The first, and I haven't mapped it out totally yet, but I've done some limited just background research. The number one thing, first off the bat, it's a Harry Colt golf course. And that's exciting to me because a lot of my friends that are super well traveled and well versed in the architecture community are like, Harry Colt's the GOAT. Harry Colt is maybe the greatest designer and influential designer to ever live. Now, I can't totally speak on that because I've never played a Harry Colt golf course. I'm actually playing my first one in a couple weeks, Toronto Golf Club, which is like the most excited I've been to play a new golf course this year. But this guy is responsible for not only designing pretty much the best golf courses in England and the British heathlands with Swinley Forest and St. George's Hill and a big redesign of Sunningdale, but he's also redesigned many of the Open Championship venues, Muirfield and Royal Liverpool. He's played a massive role in the design of Pine Valley, and he's also designed some of the greatest golf courses in Canada as well. Hamilton Golf Club, which we've actually seen a PGA Tour event. I don't think that we should be looking at, although, there is a somewhat of an obvious crossover in the sense that Bob McIntyre won at Hamilton, and Bob McIntyre did finish sixth at Portrush for what it's worth.
Be a Colt Slayer.
Who knows? Yeah. I mean, some could say, I'm not going to say that it's like the perfect comp until I spend a lot more time on Royal Portrush, but Hamilton at least was a golf course with somewhat narrow fairways, and I'm not going to do that because the agronomy is quite different, but it was a golf course where the fairways were quite narrow and there was a lot of interesting internal contouring to the greens. Royal Portrush was one of his final designs in 1933. And the weather is going to play a tremendous role. Like, if you even look back at 2019, it's interesting that you brought up the first round, because in 2019, it was almost like a tale of two golf courses where round one actually and round four played incredibly difficult, or I say incredibly difficult, but they played 2 strokes over par. Round one was 2 strokes over par and round four was 2.25. And then round two and round three, where the wind died down, presumably, the golf course basically played even par. So now that kind of totaled out for a scoring average of plus 1.17. Lowry won at 15 under par, but he won by 6 strokes. So he could have gotten to double digits under par and won the golf tournament. Martin Ebert, the new open doctor, has come in and made some changes to this golf course, both ahead of 2017. And then he added some length into a big tee change on 4. And so now the golf course is a par 71, 7,384 yards. I mean, obviously, wind is going to completely dictate the scoring average, but compared to other open venues, just if like all other variables are neutral, does this feel like a hard golf course to you? Like, does this feel, again, like if we try and compare the other venues with neutral variables, how does this stack up to you compared to other open venues in difficulty?
Yeah. Only other thing on the Harry Colt thing, when you talk about his influence, like he had a profound influence on Alistair McKenzie, and I think
Yeah.
that's an important thing to call
Yes,
out too. So,
absolutely.
another characteristic of this golf course, which ties into the difficulty in a way, it's got some of the most undulation change and like some of the most severe topography of any rota course. So
I think
that's
it's
the way
gonna
in which
play
it's
better
different.
on television than Troon.
Yeah, I mean, I love Troon.
I
Troon's
did
like,
too. I did
I'm a
too.
huge fan of Royal Troon, so you're not going to get me to throw any shade at Royal Troon. I think it's one of the best in the road.
It
I'm pretty high
is.
on it,
Yeah.
but
Great
yeah,
test of accuracy, which is hard to do in the modern era.
Troon's a sweet golf course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean St. Andrews is a pitch and putt, and I hate talking that way about one of the most important golf courses in the world. But when there's not wind, like we've just completely destroyed that place with technology. Amazing golf course, but it's not a good. It needs a lot of wind to hold up. So yeah, I would say Portrush is among the more difficult. I mean, Carnoustie is very difficult, but
Yeah.
Portrush can play hard. This stuff's so condition dependent. Like if it
So
doesn't
condition
blow,
dependent.
yeah, then it's a totally different story. But I would expect the conditions to play a significant factor and for this to be a very difficult golf course.
Well, I will say this, scoring average wise, it seems like it's middle to a little bit more difficult in terms of like we're even too early out to even really look at a weather report. They had a drought in spring, and then kind of the normal rainfall in June. So my hope is that we get firm and fast. I thought, as you mentioned, Royal Troon presented phenomenally well last year. I mean, that was kind of all you can ask for in an open venue. Um, is there anything else about the golf course in Portrush that you want to touch on before I ask you a few questions about the lead contenders?
I, I mean, just in general, an appreciation for that style of golf, and I think it was really cool to watch Oakmont this year, which is a links inspired golf course that's
Yeah.
clearly not in a links location, right in Pittsburgh, and
No.
you see like how the rough was presented around those bunkers where you'd much rather be in the rough, or sorry, where you'd much rather be in the bunkers than in the rough, which I guess I'm in a weird Venn diagram where I both thought that the setup was really gimmicky and unattractive, but also didn't have a problem with the way it was set up. I think I probably would have set it up.
I'm count me in as feeling the same way. Yeah.
Right. Like I didn't have I probably would have set it up basically the same way, which is just an indictment of where we are in the modern game. It's not a critique of Oakmont, but this golf course, Portrush, plays truer to how it is supposed to play, and how traps are a legit hazard and the ball runs into them. Like I was breaking down a golf course for a very good amateur a week or two ago who is somebody I work with, and it's so much more complex to go through off the tee decisions when bunkers are legitimate. Like you might be coming out sideways,
Yeah.
and it's not just that. It's that if you decide, if the decision is between playing short of it or like potentially trying to go over it, especially when it's firm, we could be talking about like an 80-yard difference for what that, if you end up carrying that hazard, or if you stay short of it, or
Yeah.
and then if you go in the bunker, you might have to come out sideways. Like, that is just a much more complex style of golf, requires way more. It's way more engaging intellectually, especially when wind is a factor, and you have to start shaping shots and taking spin off. Like, this is just a really cool, beautiful style of golf. So that's not necessarily specific to Portrush, but given its proximity to the water and how
Yeah.
reliable wind is, like, I do think that that's an appropriate way to frame it.
Are you going?
I am going.
That's so exciting. Are you getting to play any golf courses in the area while you're there?
I believe I'll be playing a couple good courses. Nothing is set in stone to my knowledge,
Oh,
but
I will say this. I mean, I've played a lot of golf in Southern Ireland. I've never played golf in Northern Ireland, but the golf courses in that, I mean, Royal County Down, obviously, which many believe to be the greatest golf course on earth. Many put that in their top 5 to 10 greatest golf courses ever designed. I don't think is super far from Portrush. Port Marnock's up there too. I mean, Macranish is up there. There's just a lot of good stuff around there. So I'm excited for you. You got to tell me how the golf courses are up there, because that's like that in England, to get us back to the Harry Colt topic, are two of like my most sought after destinations for me in the upcoming years. I want to start with Scheffler, and
here we go.
the question I want to ask you about Scheffler is, I can already feel, and maybe it's just kind of the gambling in the gambling community. I feel like people in the gambling community view Scottie Scheffler differently than golf fans view Scottie Scheffler. And I feel like people in the gambling community generally have an adverse take to Scottie Scheffler, because part of what a gambler and DFS player is forced to do every single week when Scottie Scheffler is in the field is come up with reasons why Scottie Scheffler won't win the golf tournament. And so if you naturally condition yourself every week to root against Scottie Scheffler, because most sharp gamblers aren't going to want to bet him plus 300, or, it's just not, it's not what gamblers are going to want to do, at least the gamblers that I cater to and speak to quite a bit. So I feel like in the gambling community, many of us have conditioned ourselves to discredit Scottie Scheffler anytime we have the opportunity to do so. And I don't think regular golf fans view Scottie Scheffler that way. And the way that you would discredit Scottie Scheffler is potentially by looking at his Open Championship record and saying, well, he hasn't quite performed as well on Open Championships compared to some of his other majors, or the success that he has had on PGA Tour golf courses. And maybe that's because the conditions are a little more variable. Maybe because when the ball doesn't hit the fairway, there's a little bit more of a variable outcome. I think one thing we can agree on with Scottie Scheffler, as on the shotgun start, has a great bit that is kind of dovetailing this point about him being the fair police. Another way of saying the fair police is that Scottie Scheffler really likes controllable outcomes. I mean, all PGA Tour players do, but Scottie Scheffler really likes overseeded rough. He really likes having the same lie every time if he misses the fairway. He really likes misses properly penalized, right? And you don't really get that in links golf. Do you see that as an issue for him across the pond, or is that a bit of a reach to you?
I don't want to take any swipes at some of my colleagues. I think they go too far with the Scotty Fair Police thing. In parts, I disagree with Scotty on certain of those things. Like, I don't think you should have the same lie every time you miss the fairway. I don't. I have no problem with an inconsistent lie, and that's actually something that Patrick Cantlay kind of whined about in advance of LACC. He was not happy about how, like, on the 6th hole, the drivable 4, if you ended up in that, in some of the long grass there, short left of the green, that sometimes it was fine and sometimes it was dead, and he didn't like that. And that's pretty common amongst tour pros. I have a significant problem with that. I think
Me too.
Unpredictable lies is part of the game and part of the way that you test the best players in the world. So I disagree there. Where I kind of agree with Scotty is on the misses being penalized somewhat proportionally to how much you miss. I don't think
Yeah.
this needs to be a math formula and that it needs to be a quarter of a shot if you miss a little. And I don't think it needs to be formulaic, but I think shots need to be achievable. And then if you don't achieve the shot, like as long as the landing area is big enough for a Tour Pros dispersion, like they're hitting good shots, I do think it should be possible to hit the fairway. But if it doesn't, then I don't have an issue with where it ends up. And I think we've gone a little far with putting words in Scotty's mouth about that. Like I asked him at Oakmont if he thought Oakmont was a fair test, and like he had no problem with it.
Yeah.
And you could easily argue that Oakmont wasn't a fair test. I think it was. I think it played well, but
Yeah.
Scotty had no issue with it. So I think the Scotty Fair Police stuff has gone a little far. If you wanted to nitpick Scotty, I think the best argument against him is probably the putter.
That's exactly what I would say. And a lot of times when Scotty doesn't play well, it's not because he's frustrated at the golf course.
No.
It's just because he doesn't make putts. And he hasn't made putts at Open Championships.
And that's the thing that I'd love to get into a little more. I'm going to ask some guys about it, but I think you do have to I think you have to strike putts better when the greens are slow and grainy and sloped like they are in a lot of links golf. I mean, this is not Augusta National where things are running lightning speed and perfectly pure. Like you have to strike the putt well. And I think that's something that Scotty just probably struggles with, even though his putter's been better recently. Like I think playing the same conditions week to week on the PGA Tour can sometimes make somebody's putter look a little better than it is. And that's what I'm interested in with Scotty. So I'd be shocked if Scotty goes out and like gains 8 strokes putting or even 5. Like if he has a great putting week, that would shock me. It wouldn't shock me if he can hang around, 0 or gain 1 or 2, but there is some inconsistency, like you're saying, in off the tee stuff. So he's probably going to need to have a decent putting week unless he just gets good end of a wave or, has an unbelievable ball striking week. But like you're mentioning appropriately, like there's enough variance in links golf that he's probably going to have to putt pretty well. And that's probably the biggest question. It is the biggest question mark with Scotty, not the Fair Police stuff.
I couldn't agree more. To me, it all comes down to the putting for Scottie Scheffler at this Open Championship. If you told me what Scottie Scheffler's strokes gained putting number would be at the beginning of the week, I feel like I would be able to do a decent job accurately predicting his finishing position.
What do you think it needs to be? What would that number need to be for you to say, okay, he won?
Well, I need to know a little bit more of how the strokes gain pie breaks down overall at a golf course like Royal Portrush, because gaining 5 strokes putting at certain golf courses not always gained equally. Gaining 5 strokes putting can get you a little farther at certain golf courses over others. So I would need to know how the rest of the strokes gain pie does. But if you actually just take the average of Scottie Scheffler's strokes gained off the tee and strokes gain approach I'm going to give you, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 measured tournaments across the pond. So I'm including as well 2 Scottish Opens where he finished 3rd and 12th, actually a 3rd Scottish Open where he missed the cut. If you take that out and you really just even want to go through 3 Open Championships, Scottie Scheffler is averaging a stroke per round off the tee in true strokes gained and about 1.5-ish true strokes gained on approach and close to a neutral short game. So you can pretty much overall through the course of the tournament. I don't know if you prefer looking at it round by round or overall across the 4 rounds. I'll give you the numbers for the 4 rounds. I feel pretty confident that Scotty can get to +4 off the tee and +4.5, +5 on approach. Generally, you want to gain at least 12 to 13 strokes on the field to win the tournament. So at least you're right. Sometimes that number is closer to 16 or 17. I'm going to say I don't really think that this is a golf course that Scottie Scheffler can win at losing strokes putting, but I think if he's +1 or 2 on the greens, there's about 100% chance he's finishing top 5.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, he could catch the bad end of a wave split or something. So
Totally true.
that's the biggest question mark. But I think if you told me right now he's going to gain 5 strokes putting for the week, like
He wins.
he wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very good chance. The only way he doesn't win is if one of the other top players in the world pushes him. Like if Rory,
Yeah.
which I would be a little skeptical of, if Jon
I have
Rahm
a
went out
question
and
on Rory next. Don't
like,
worry.
if Jon Rahm went out there and like played 4 days of flawless golf, maybe he could push him. But or Tommy Fleetwood.
Sure.
I'm
We
kind of
we
kidding, but
we could certainly talk about him as well, but yeah, I'm totally with you. I have no concerns about Scottie Scheffler's ball striking on
yeah,
like this turf, the fescue. Like he almost led the field in an approach play at last year's Open Championship at Royal Troon. So anyway, the next question that I would ask you, I would say after Rory McIlroy won the Grand Slam and won the Masters, which no matter how the rest of the year shakes out, that is the greatest accomplishment in golf of the year, maybe the greatest accomplishment when you add in historical context of the last 5 to 10 years. Um,
more than
oh,
Phil.
it's a good point. I think those are kind of the yeah. Well, I was going to bring up Kiwa with you later, but yeah, I think those are. I think would you say the not to huge digression here, but if you ask me the 3 most important major championships of the last 10 years, I would say the 2019 Masters, the 2025 Masters, and the 2021 PGA Championship.
Hard to argue with. Like what
Yeah,
the most consequential.
historical significance.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think anyone
so
can
three
take issue with those. I don't think those are my like favorite or my most the ones that I
memorable, but
found the most memorable. Yeah, but yeah.
let me ask you this. In the what has gone down with Rory post Augusta, which now it's a small sample size, but we have 2 majors and a couple other PGA Tour events. Has the muted, somewhat disappointing play surprised you? Were you one of the people that thought that this was a floodgate situation? Or just where are you at on Rory right now? Because I think the level that he's performing right now is not what people expected coming off achieving what he achieved earlier in the season.
I've been wrong about plenty of things. Happy to talk about the things I've been most wrong about. This has not surprised me. I kind of
Me
felt like
neither. I didn't think that this was going to be a floodgates for Rory.
I can somebody tell me the last time we've had a true floodgate situation? That to me is one of the most like
Well, we have seen,
ridiculous,
yeah,
ridiculous type narratives that
yeah.
I
I mean,
believe in pressure and the impact of playing with expectations and removing a burden and stuff. But to just expect Rory to go on a tear, I think was crazy. And that's not like I've maybe said this take before on your pod, but one I do believe in is when Rory did the celebration in the 22 Masters, right? When he holed out from the bunker on 18 to shoot 64 on Sunday. I believe that was 2022.
yeah, that was Scheffler's. That was the year that Scheffler like 4-putted to win the
Yeah,
Masters.
yeah. So Rory holes out, really not any chance to win at that point. And he did like the big celebration in the bunker there. Like I was pretty disgusted by that. And that Tiger Woods or Scottie Scheffler like would really never be celebrating a holdout bunker shot like that when they had no chance to win the golf tournament when tournament's over. I do think like, and I have a lot of respect for Rory. I'm
Yeah,
not a Rory hater in any way.
me neither,
He doesn't,
obviously.
he's not the like stone cold killer mentality that Scotty is, and that's just back to work, back to the grinds. Like he even has said that he
He has.
not that part as much, but I don't think Rory would ever describe himself as not being that competitive. But he kind of even admitted like he took a couple weeks off after he won the Masters. I thought it was fairly predictable. Not that he'd play as poorly as he has, but for him to push like a Scottie Scheffler level right now, I think is a little bit of a stretch.
I completely agree with you. In fact, like if we were just thinking about natural human psychology, and I'm an idiot podcaster. Far be it from me to understand the true psyche of Rory McIlroy. But if we play the fun podcasting game of predicting what might perhaps be going on in his head, I actually think a more natural human reaction to achieving something that you have been trying so hard and working your entire life to achieve, literally like 10 years of coming so close and trying so hard to get over that hump and win another major, particularly at Augusta. I would expect the more natural human emotion to be a letdown, to be what now? I think that is natural for human beings. Like I saw it recently with my girlfriend when she graduated vet school. Like she had worked at veterinary school for it is
this is
worked
a great comparison.
so hard, spent like her whole life over the last it's her graduating veterinary school does not have the historical significance of Rory McIlroy, but to her, it was the most important thing that she's ever accomplished in her entire
Has she
life.
started botching surgeries afterwards?
She hasn't started work yet.
I don't
But
know if you're going the full, like she missed the cut at Quail Hollow.
no, but what I
He didn't
am
miss the cut. He didn't miss the cut. But
well, what I am saying is like I know that after graduating, she experienced like a massive, like, fuck, what do I do now? Like, I accomplished that. I've been working so hard to accomplish that. What am I supposed to like do now? And that feels a little bit like Rory talking openly about struggling with his motivation. And I'm not going to kill him for that. Like, I get that. I think that's kind of a human emotion. The question comes to, okay, how long until you get your motivation back, dude? And what is the next thing that you work towards? Because if you want to talk about historical significance, if Rory wins one or two more majors, he has everything now Rory does is historically significant. Anytime, he's chasing history now. Okay. So if Rory were to win another two majors, we have the opportunity to talk about him as one of the 5 to 6 greatest golfers of all time. Far be it from me to know if Rory actually cares about being like considered the 10th greatest golfer of all time or the 6th greatest golfer of all time. But what's next for him? Like, what is a realistic expectation for the next 5 years for Rory McIlroy?
I'm not going to kill him for it. I think that's being a little soft on him, and I just have it.
Yeah, you'd expect him to have a little more competitive spirit than the average human being.
Right. Like I do think Rory's having kind of a natural human reaction, and the stone cold killers, Tiger, Tom Brady,
are natural humans.
Yeah. They're not. And
yeah.
Novak Djokovic, one of my favorite athletes in the world. I take a lot of heat for that, but like that's not his reaction to winning, to getting over some massive jump. Like it's right back to work the next day. And I think Scotty is actually wired that way, which is something I admire about him. So
yeah,
no, none of it's shocked me, but I'm also not going to completely go the full like, and who could blame him? Like I think it's a little like, I don't know, man. Like golf's great in that you get to react to that however you want. It's an individual sport. It's not like if you have a little bit of a letdown, it's impacting other people. So he should have the freedom to react to it however he wants. But I'd like to see a little more fire. I mean, dude, the PGA was at Quail Hollow. That was an unbelievable opportunity to go grab another one. Totally uncompetitive. And then right now we're at Portrush. Like, how long would you be willing to let a little bit of a downturn go and letting, like, what if he just doesn't show up at all at the Ryder Cup? Is that completely fine?
No, that's whack. And realistically for Rory, taking more than, I mean, if you look at Rory over the last 10 years, even during this drought, he has averaged being competitive with a somewhat chance to win where you're at least finishing top 7 or 8 in 2 of the 4 majors every single year. So if he doesn't show up at Royal Portrush, you can't view the year as a disappointment, but it actually is below what he's averaged over the last 10 years, where he has been always at least competitive, finishing top 10 in 2 out of the last 4 majors and 2 out of every 4 majors. What's your sense at Portrush? Do you think it's a good major for Rory or a bad one?
My expectations aren't super high. I don't think it's like completely out of the realm of possibilities. He's way too good to doubt him. Like
Do you think
Rory,
it's even a good golf course fit for him on paper?
not really, but Rory's pretty. He can show up kind of anywhere, and so I don't.
Yeah. I
I
didn't
don't want.
think Pebble or TPC Sawgrass were particularly the most advantageous to his skill set.
And that's kind of, I think, where some of the frustration, at least for me, comes from this little downturn. Like I thought it was really badass at the beginning of this year that there was a legitimate conversation of who the best player in the world is. Like Rory came out hot early in the year. Scotty was a little slow to start, and it was like, hey, this gap, like Rory's really closed in on it. I thought that was really admirable, and he has shown that he can show up anywhere and perform. So I think his expectations should be higher than they are right now. And no, I don't expect him to be competitive at Portrush, but if he's leading going into Saturday or Sunday, it's not like it would shock me, but I think there'd be a lot of, I just said, put it this in a gambling. I wouldn't be in a rush to bet him. I don't even know what his
right.
current odds are.
I think he's like, I actually
Like
think
6 or 7 to 1. Yeah, no, I would have zero interest in that number.
completely agree.
Are there people who have interest in that number?
It's hard to say yet. I have a much better answer to that question in the next like 72 hours once I start really putting out content for
That's
the
kind of
Open.
that's a crazy number to me.
I somewhat agree with you. I think Rory, I know that he won the Masters, but like I think the numbers that I feel a little bit more comfortable betting Rory to win major championships is like 14, 16 to 1. I don't really have too much interest on him, certainly betting him at under 7 or 8 to 1.
I don't think I have zero interest in him at 6 or 7 to 1 without Scotty.
Yeah. 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 Fair enough.
1
So
in 6?
yeah, he's right now, I'll give you Bookmaker, which typically caters to sharp bettors. And this is a book that is, largely going to be dictated by action. So you can get a very good sense of where some of the better golf bettors truly feel about these guys. Right now, it's Scottie Scheffler plus 485, Rory McIlroy plus 700. I would almost make that gap a little bit bigger in my mind. I don't have a problem with Scheffler being like 4 to 1 and Rory being closer to 9 or 10.
No disagreement here. Another way of putting it, I think the gap between Rahm and Rory should be narrower.
Well, let me ask you that question because Rahm was my pick in December. And I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good about him, man. I'm interested to see how he does at LIV this week. Not that I think that golf course is in any way similar to Royal Portrush. He is coming off his first non-top 10 finish of the year on LIV, but
Greatest streak in sports.
seriously, speaking of historical significance, but he's been really good at Quail. He was really good at Quail and kind of snuck up on us with a strong finish at Oakmont. I will tell you, I went all in on Scottie Scheffler at Quail. We were talking about it that week. And there was a big time moment on Sunday. It was like a 45-minute stretch where I felt fear in Jon Rahm in the way that I haven't like watched him play in quite some time. Like it felt like he had a little bit of that mojo back, and I felt like he lost some of his mojo with going back to LIV. Do you feel like he's got his mojo back in major championships and is the third best player in the world?
Yeah, I'd be hard for me to like. You could sell me on Bryson at certain setups.
Yeah, it's like the
not,
third best player in the world is either him or Bryson, and I think it's a little bit course fit dependent.
Yeah, you could sell me on Rahm over Rory at Portrush. Just he hits the ball so much straighter that I think Rahm's a pretty significant threat to win this golf tournament.
I agree.
Again, I want to see like where tee times could be relevant. So
Yes,
that's a huge part of the Open Championship always. But yeah, the obvious concern is that he hasn't won, including on LIV, and so like he hasn't hit that top baseline. Like if Scotty plays really well, can Jon Rahm match him? I think is a difficult question. But again, at a tournament like the Open Championship, the chances of Scotty playing all the way to what we've seen are a little lower anyway. So I like the Rahm call. I have no issue with that.
I'm the biggest Bob McIntyre fan you'll
Yeah.
ever meet. If Bob McIntyre had won the US Open, that would have, I'm not going to say life-changing for me, but
The floodgates would have opened
it
for
would
you?
have been significant for me, in maybe my career, definitely, my financial prospects, it would have helped a little bit. He's 20-1
This at the Open.
at the Open. He's 20-1. He's 33-1 to win the Scottish Open, but he's 20-1 on bookmaker, at least. I'm sure you can shop around and find better prices, but his market price is maximum 30-1. I know he finished 6th at Portrush, but wow. That's a big wow for me. 20-1.
I think I don't even know if I fully appreciated it until this year. Like he's actually got some speed. Bobby Mack can
Bob
push.
Mack's an amazing golfer.
He's really good. He can push
Yeah.
like ball speed. And
Yeah.
I don't know why it's at some points I'd historically thought of him as a little bit more of a poofer, but not a poofer, but not as like he's really good off the tee. So I don't think I don't think that price is crazy.
I don't want to spend too much more time on the Open because there's one or two more things that I want to hit with you, and I won't keep you too much more than an hour, but I'm going to throw out, actually, I'll just leave it open to you. If there's a name farther down the board that you want to highlight that you feel like is dangerous for Portrush, any names that come to mind for you?
I think I don't even know if I want to throw his name out there. There's one deep sleeper that I think is interesting, and I was looking at his Open Championship record the other day. I was like, it is incredible. I guess the hint is his wife got into a fight with somebody she used to work with on Golf Channel on Twitter a long time back. So if people can pull that reference, then that's who I'm referring to.
I'm clueless.
I think there's a case for Sergio, just as a total like.
I didn't think you were going there, but I'm open to it.
What Sergio's done in Open Championships is insane, and I'll always respect his off the tee ability. Like even though I know recently he hasn't been playing that good at golf, like you get choppy conditions out there and see who can really hit the golf ball and who can really work it. As a total long shot, I don't think Sergio's the craziest name in the world. Do I think somebody like Adam Scott? I know he'll be a popular name that gets thrown around. Like, yeah, of course, Adam Scott has a better chance winning the golf tournament than Sergio. But would I be shocked to see Sergio Garcia in the top 5 going into Sunday? No. I mean, he was in the mix at Pinehurst last year. Like Sergio's competitive career is not over. And he truly, you want to talk about somebody who finds the center of the club face and who's been incredible in Open Championships. Who's like who comes to mind before Sergio? I mean, there's some guys who are obviously Scotty, people like that, but you get the point. Like Sergio, I would I don't know if I'd go as far as to say Sergio over Justin Rose, but I think Sergio could be a little bit of a threat.
Yeah. The name that I will throw into the mix for you, and I do think one of these weeks he is just going to stumble into winning a really big golf tournament because of his ability to gain strokes significantly off the tee without even really being like a long driver of the ball. And I also think that he is set up for some success on links golf courses, given the fact that his biggest weakness in his game is probably still chipping. He's actually improved as a putter drastically this year and has putted kind of sneakily okay under a very limited sample size on these greens across the pond. I'm going Corey Connors.
Are you going Corey Connors?
Yeah, I am.
The way you're describing that's what I thought you were saying.
Corey Connors. I will say this. I think Corey Connors and Aaron Rai are two very similar players. And I think both of them. Here's what I would say, and you may disagree with me on this. from a statistical standpoint. I think that there are very few drivers of the ball that are so accurate to the point where they can gain strokes significantly off the tee with below average distance. And what Corey Connors is one of the very few people that can do this consistently. Colin Morikawa can do this. Aaron Rai can do this. There's really not that many other people that could do this. Even Russell Henley struggles to like gain big numbers of strokes off the tee because he is so short. I do think Corey Connors' accuracy on a golf course where I'm not sold that the missed fairway penalty at Royal Portrush is going to be like extreme. But I do think that Corey Connors, he's like, he doesn't inspire much in me, but I think his skill is extremely high that one of these weeks he's going to fall into winning a very big golf tournament.
I don't disagree on a lot of that. I was really high on Corey Connors at Oakmont.
Me too.
The injury,
he just fucking hurt his wrist. I mean, he was playing fine.
That's a concern though.
Yeah.
Like he hasn't played since then. So
we're going to see where he looks this week.
Yeah. It makes me nervous. The same type Scotty argument of like, it's nice that you're putting much better on the PGA Tour. You're referencing that his putting numbers have been better overseas. I'd have to look. I don't know how much he's played overseas.
We're talking a sample size of like 3 Open Championships. So, and he actually has putted a little bit well. I actually have it in front of me, so I could pull it up right now. So, Scottie Scheffler has played in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 measured times. Corey Connors has played where we have strokes gain data available 7 times across the pond. He's gained strokes putting in 6 of 7 times across the pond on native grasses.
It would surprise me if he gains, 3 strokes for the tournament. Like I'd be pretty surprised. The short game also like just does make me nervous.
Agree.
So
agree.
It would surprise me to see him get it across the finish line. I'll be honest, but I do like the ball flight. I like the ball flight, especially when it can get a little choppy. And he's been a great. Yeah, he often hits a little tight draw.
You're right about that. It seems like he could have both.
I think given the injury and that I would have questions about both the short game and the putting, I wouldn't be as high as you are. But if he came in healthy and all firing, and I'd feel a little better. I just don't know what his last couple of weeks have looked like. It'd be kind of a stretch for me to think.
You're actually sometimes between Connors and Henley as like these very similar profiled players that always feel like they are on the periphery of being taken a little bit more seriously. You're right. Connors is more of a draw guy. Henley is the guy who hits more of a tight fade. Connors does actually like to work it a little bit more right to left. Not that I've spent enough time on Portrush to figure out which is a little bit more advantageous in terms of working it left to right or right to left. But
I wouldn't even worry about the shape
ball flight
that much. But I think from a wind, from how the ball flies through the wind, like there can be an advantage to hitting a tight draw.
Yeah.
But he's never done anything. I know he's playing better golf than he's played a lot in his career. He's never really done anything in an Open. He's outside of Augusta, hasn't done much really anywhere. I thought he could at Oakmont.
Well, I mean, we are talking about a guy now that has held like, he was like the 72-hole leader at Oak Hill. Like he's been relevant in major championships now. He obviously hasn't won a major, but he's mixed enough. Like there's been now 4, 5, 6 times where it's been after the first round. He was the first round leader at Kiowa. He's been he's taken a 36-hole lead at Augusta. Like he's played major championship golf. Like he's played ball in these tournaments.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to talk.
I love
Corey Connors. I
think you're being a little tough on him.
I don't like when there's multiple big question marks about a player, and I think the short game.
Fair.
You seem to feel better about his putter than I would feel.
Yeah.
At overseas, and then also coming off of an injury. There would be some cause for concern there.
I think you're right. If the injury is bad, it's just a non-starter for me. I'm thinking
it was bad
more
enough
of
he
like,
couldn't play one round. He withdrew before Sunday, which is
totally with you. I'm thinking more of like, is the best version of Corey Connors a great course fit at this Open Championship? I think for me, the answer is yes, but maybe I would ask you, this will be the
I
final.
think for me, the answer is no.
Well, okay, good. All right. Cause I like when you keep me in check a little bit, but can I ask you about chipping at opens and links golf courses? I think to me, it's a skill that can be devalued personally. I
Just
think
because it's easier to chip.
Well, I don't think that. I think there are a lot of shots around the green where you don't have to chip. And I think that the sand is different out of the bunkers, and a lot of luck is involved with around the green play at links golf courses, and a lot of luck is involved with whether or not you have the ability to get the ball out of a pot bunker. And like, you could be a terrible around the green player on the PGA Tour and have the yips out of short grass Bermuda, but you could go to the Open Championship and spend an hour in a pot bunker with your coach and suddenly understand how to get the ball out of pot bunkers. And you could also go around a lot of these golf courses using the Texas wedge and not having to chip.
I'm with a lot of that argument. I think that's
I lost you at the end.
You lost me with like, do I really want to watch Corey Connors lag putt from off the greens from 65 feet, like with some slope, and it's a little rainy and windy? Like, is that what I want? I don't think so.
No, I appreciate your cool down on Corey Connors. This is why
I
I love
like Corey Connors.
golf
This sucks.
No, listen, man. I love throwing out takes, and I like when you bring me back to earth. It's helpful for me.
It's just he's not. If you told me he's 200 to 1, like
he's 90 to 1's a big number.
That's actually higher than I thought.
It's a high number. I'm telling you right now, Data Golf is not going to make him 90 to 1 in their model.
I look at odds checker. I was seeing a lot of like 66, 70, and I think you can do better than that. But
yeah. Okay, so can I just? I mean, this, I think, for listeners at least, is more important than what I was going to ask you about Kiowa. I just like where do you? And we won't go more than 10 or 15 minutes. So this could be I'm glad I'll title the pod Early Open Championship Preview, because I think we covered a lot of really good ground for people that are excited for the Open. But
I think Cam Young has a better chance of winning than Corey Connors. I'll say that.
I disagree.
That's a fun one.
That could be a fun gentleman's bet between us, Corey Connors and Cam Young. But
Cameron.
But the stipulation that I'm going to ask for is I have to see what happens at Scottish. Like, if Corey Connors withdraws from the Scottish Open, I'm out on Corey Connors.
Deal. If he withdraws, it's voided from the Scottish. Then it's voided. If he finishes the Scottish Open, it's in.
Deal. I 100% take Connors versus Cam Young. Okay, so Cameron Young. Does he not like being called Cam?
Apparently he prefers Cameron. So we're gonna get it right.
All right. So
we'll see what they engrave. We have to see what they engrave on the trophy. Make sure it says Cameron.
Cameron. Can I just get like how you feel about LIV today? Like, and like, what's going on there, man? What are the vibes like to you? And have you how relevant do you think it is? And have you followed it the way that you have in years past?
I think the level I've followed it is similar.
Yeah.
I think I have more of an appreciation for the history of golf and how difficult it is to get people to show up to different countries to play golf, and how much easier it is to say that it would be nice to have a global calendar than to actually execute that. And the only way really to execute that is to contractually obligate players to show up. Had a conversation with Frank Nobilo that I published, and he talks about that, right? Like that is reality. It was true in the 80s, 90s. Now, like everyone loves to say the Australian Open should be bigger. You tell me how we make the Australian Open bigger, right? Like, are these American golfers going to fly over there and play? Like, they're not going to without guaranteed money and an appearance fee. So, LIV, if you're going to try to make the sport global, doing it the way they're doing it with contracts makes sense. I still think the format, the music, the teams, it's all a bunch of bullshit. And it's so unserious. It's more serious than it used to be, but it's still very unserious.
And we have a large sample size that this isn't actually what fans want.
Apparently it is, right? I understand, like, yeah, it's what Yasser wants. I understand some of the business advantages of a franchise model, but the product is really hard. I've been in person. I've watched it. It's not compelling.
Yeah.
They're even bringing in more talent, and it's like David Puig is a really good
Really
young
good.
golfer.
Yeah.
He's really good. Like you could sell me on him having, if he has
As a Ryder Cup luck,
you
in
could
my
sell me on
opinion.
that. If
Yeah, me too.
shows up in some tournaments, in some big tournaments, I mean, especially in the Open. But I don't know. Like, I don't feel anything really towards it. Like, it's a relevant part of the golf landscape, at least right now. And some of the players are really good. Like, they've got 5 to 15 like good players, but feel like it's gaining any traction or momentum? No. Do I think that they're going to poach any American based good players? No. I think the offering to a good American player is very poor compared to a PGA Tour schedule. And especially, I think this year, the benefits of a flexible schedule where you can pick your events is massive, and something the PGA Tour should be cramming down the throat of any player who's considering signing with LIV. It is a huge disadvantage to play the schedule that LIV's trotting out, especially next year. Like, you don't
Especially
play
next year. I was shocked to see some of their scheduling before major championships. Shocked.
And I'm sympathetic. You know how hard it would be to put that schedule together? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think LIV's like this completely incompetent. This schedule is so dumb. It's really hard
Actually,
to execute.
like, have liked some of the stuff that I've heard from their new CEO. I'm not
Yeah.
totally sold on him, but I think he's maybe an improvement.
Yeah, I think he's an improvement. I don't know that I've heard necessarily amazing.
I need to see a little bit more, but he
like the
has
tone better.
Yeah. I think he has at least some experience, communication skills that I found a little bit more compelling in terms of, like, he seemed like he had a solid attitude and his head on his shoulders in the right place. But to me, okay, and this is a very different question, I think, than does the PGA Tour need a merger? But do you think now that pro golf needs a merger? Do you think that as fans, it is important for us and should be a priority for us to get everyone back together? Do you think that pro golf still needs that with the same urgency that it has in years past? Or have we just come conditioned now that there's really only 4 relevant weeks of the year where we get to see Rahm, Bryson, and Brooks?
A, no, I don't think the golf world needs it. B, I'm kind of over the question, to be honest, because it's not going to happen. And
you think mergers now, it's just not happening.
It was never going to happen. There've never been any substantive details around how Yasser has been intent on the team model staying. The PGA Tour has been intent on it not being a part of the future. So as long as those two things were true, like, I don't think they've ever been close to coming to any kind of terms. I don't. And so I also kind of disagree with, do we have to come to grips with golf like only 4 times a year being like, I know you're saying everyone getting together, but like,
right.
I actually think golf, there are a lot of relevant weeks of the year.
I agree. I totally agree with that. I just mean there's only 4 a year where, I mean, I think that Bryson and Rahm are the 3rd and 4th best players in the world. And you're not going to be able to convince me that the correct model is them competing against Scottie Scheffler only 4 times a year.
But I think where I've changed, maybe, and I've changed my mind on some of it, but I didn't miss Rory skipping out on the Memorial. I didn't really miss Scotty skipping out on the Truist. Like,
I don't think it's hurting ratings that they're out there.
It's better to have them there, but like these individual tournaments need to put on the best tournaments they can, and thinking about it that way. And I think golf's in a pretty good spot. It's dealing with a lot of the same issues it dealt with 30, 40 years ago. So I think it's kind of fine. It's a tale as old as time, trying to compel people to show up to international events. No, I don't think golf needs a merger. In some ways, I think them still competing with one another and it not being a monopoly will provide advantages for golf fans. So that's I guess generally how I feel about it. Like, them competing for talent is a good thing.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I still I'm still never like gonna be convinced that the PGA Tour should just, I don't care if the ratings have rebounded a little bit. I'm just never going to buy like, if you're just even like looking at it like free agents or players on other teams, I'm just never not going to buy that the PGA Tour isn't going to improve as a product and an entity if Bryson DeChambeau is playing in those events 15 times a year. I think Bryson's a superstar.
Sure, but I
get it. How do you get him? I get that.
It's not happening. I think you need to work on those contracts. Are not forever. They're not lifetime contracts.
They're not forever, and I'm not and I'm not super sold. I get it. Oh, wiping their ass with dollar bills. I'm not convinced that every player on LIV is happy with their current situation.
And I think, again, the schedule is a big part of that. Like, there have been a lot of reports that Brooks Koepka does not love the schedule that he's playing, and he's not loving his LIV experience. Like, if I'm the PGA Tour, I'm focused on making the tours, when players are faced with re-signing.
Yeah.
If you're 20-year-old, especially an international 20-year-old, I think LIV kind of makes some sense. Like, hey, I'll give you a 3 to 4 year runway.
Well, I don't think it makes sense for young guys.
I don't think it's in their best interest, but I think the pitch is decent. Like, you don't have the pressure. Look at what's happening with Nick Dunlap. We're going to give you 3 to 4 years to figure it out with no real pressure, under the guidance of Jon Rahm or another player. Like, you're going to make a bunch of money. You're not going to be thinking about money. I think there's a pretty strong case LIV can make. I wouldn't advise anybody to make that, but we'll see what happens with, Pot Gieter's kind of an interesting one, right? Like, there's been some smoke about that.
I don't think he should do that.
I don't either. Yeah. But I think it's a reasonable sell.
Yeah. You pick up the phone. I agree. You definitely pick up the phone and hear them out. I just think, like, if we are looking at the modern golf world, I do think that we're in a position right now with golf, and I wish this wasn't the case, because, like, I own a business that is highly, like, if more people are engaged for 30 weeks of the year, that's very good for my business. Like, it's not inherently good for me to admit or believe that there's really only 4 weeks of the golf year that fans should care about. But I do believe that majors have elevated above many of the other weeks of the year for professional golf in a way that just extreme is not the word, but just the majors have a totally different feel. And it's difficult for me to think that a young, great player is going to be best positioned to, like, find a foundation, learning how to play and being prepared for those big weeks, major championships weeks, if they're on LIV.
Yeah, I agree. I just would push, maybe entirely vibes based, but I'd push back a little on the majors now elevating to this completely different level than everything else. It felt a little more that way to me a year or two
Than
ago.
it did this year? I don't know. I mean, I thought that like
They've always been way bigger.
always totally, but like no Riviera this year.
Well, that's different.
Yeah, I don't know. Memorial felt a little.
I thought Memorial was cool. I thought Colonial was great. Like I think
Colonial's a banger. There were like I'm not talking about whether the tournament or not was good. I'm talking about whether it felt like something was really happening in the golf world that week.
and I think this year I have felt like
You felt like it has.
I think we're kind of back.
I like that. That's good. That makes me feel better. Okay. Joseph, that's it for me, man. We will talk many times more in the
Talk
near
about
future.
Kiowa next time.
Yeah, we'll talk about Kiowa next time. I mean, just 2 minutes on it. You would call yourself a Pete Dye appreciator. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think, is he my favorite architect in golf? No, but
When you say favorite architect in golf, because this was the question that I found myself wrestling with when I played Kiowa. The concept of, does Pete Dye design great golf courses to host professional golf events versus does Pete Dye design golf courses that are fun and engaging for amateurs?
there's a lot of Pete Dye I'd like to see. Like I'd like to
Yeah.
see Casa de Campo.
Have you played Ocean Course?
I have played it. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I was a kid. I mean, I grew up playing a Pete Dye golf course and was around Pete Dye. Like,
Cricket Stick, right?
yeah, and he was there every day.
I want to play that one. That's actually kind of like his that's like his Tom Fazio's Wade Hampton, Alistair McKenzie's Pasatiempo, Tillinghast, Philly Cricket. Like he lived at Cricket Stick, right?
Yeah, it's his first like great design, right? And I would be I think you should go see it if you can. It's a really
I
cool
plan on it. I really want to.
I'm not going to go overboard on the praise for it, like from a professional golf standpoint. Like if you told me there's going to be a professional golf tournament there next week, I wouldn't be super excited. It doesn't hold up super well for that, but it's a really cool golf course to go see. The back nine's awesome. I think Pete Dye's like TPC Sawgrass was brilliant and extremely forward thinking. And Pete Dye had a level of courage to design something like that and not care about blowback. Tour players hated it. Like that was a brilliant golf course.
Yeah.
So well designed for spectators. It's held up incredibly well. So like Pete Dye, I think takes some heat overall. Again, he's not my favorite, but I think he's done some really good work. Like
yeah,
PGA West now is thought of as a putting contest.
That's not how it was designed.
That's not how it was back then. So I don't know. I'm mixed on him. I have an appreciation for him. I wouldn't, if you could hire any architect in their prime to go build the next great major championship venue, would he be at the top of my list? No, but I have an appreciation for him.
I think his golf courses are like, I think now there's a lot of gaps in my resume here. I've played, the Ocean Course was the first Pete Dye championship golf course I played. So I haven't played TPC Sawgrass or Whistling Straits or Harbor Town or like Stadium Course or TPC.
I think Harbor Town's overrated by the way.
Yeah, me too. Well, you know what? I think it's overrated like as a PGA Tour event. People frame it as like this really quirky and compelling test.
It's fine.
Yeah. I thought the Ocean Course was like really unfun, but
really?
Yeah. It was
I think
really
the Ocean
tough.
Course is cool.
You think no. Very cool. I had a lot of respect for it. I actually think that the design of the par fives, it has the best set of par fives I've ever played for strategy. I actually found it was the toughest set of layup shots that I've ever hit on par fives. And I found myself thoroughly engaged on pretty much every shot that I hit out there, which is not the case. You can turn your brain off on a lot of golf courses if you're a decent golfer. I do struggle a little bit, and this is kind of the dichotomy between like the way that you have to design a golf course to make it super awesome and fun and engaging for amateurs versus the way that you have to design it to make it a great championship golf course that's going to test the modern golfers, that you almost have to look at the penalty for misses at two completely opposite ends of the spectrum. I think that the best way to test professional golfers is to create a fairly severe penalty for big misses, right? And at least some,
you're preaching to the choir on that.
Of course. But let me just finish the point, because I think you will agree with what I'm saying generally. I think that to design the best golf courses for modern PGA Tour players, misses need to have proper serious consequences. And I actually think that the most exciting architecture that is being built right now for amateurs are golf courses that actually allow extreme amounts of recovery. So I actually like, and I think those are the golf courses that are getting the most acclaim right now in terms of Old Barnwell and Tree Farm, and a lot of the golf courses that Gil Hanse and Corin Crenshaw and Tom Doak design. They actually believe in tremendous amounts of space off the tee and allowing amateurs to have recovery. It's like you play a golf course like Old Barnwell, which is the apple of everyone's eye right now. That's a golf course where it's nearly impossible to lose a golf ball.
You can hit it anywhere.
And you're never really out of a hole. And at the Ocean course, like I played really well. I made 12 pars at the Ocean course, which I was really proud of, but I made 6 double bogeys, or I made 5 double bogeys with 6 lost balls. Because if you just miss, like if you just hit a bad drive, like you're out of play and you're making double. Whereas, and so that's what I was saying. I think do you get what I'm saying? I think the dichotomy is very interesting, where we're almost reached a point where you have to design the best golf courses for amateurs in completely different way, where you have to design golf courses if you really want to test pro golfers.
Big topic that we could do.
It's a good topic. That's why I wish we had more time.
Where I will sort of push back is I think the notion that those were ever super close is overstated, and that it's and that gap has always been. It's gotten wider, but I think sometimes when people talk about how great architecture tests both amateurs and professionals, sometimes that idea is taken a little far.
We're playing different games.
Well, but people will throw out Pinehurst as an example. Like an amateur can play it and a pro can play it. Like I'm telling you, put a 10 handy. Pinehurst is hard. Like that golf course is really, really hard for an amateur. They may not lose a lot of golf balls out there, but it is really hard. So I agree, it's different. And I think some of these new builds, I believe in width and strategic golf. And if you miss wide, there should be a significant penalty. I think, for example, Old Barnwell, like that is not designed to host a professional golf event. And if it did,
it's designed to be fun.
But if it were designed for a professional golf test, like it would have failed. Like that place is not at all a challenge for a pro golfer. Frisco East, which we don't have time to get too into, like I think that was not done well. I'm not a fan of Frisco East, and that's a place with width. So I don't think like there's room for a lot of different tangents to go on, but I don't think something is good inherently because it's wide.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a lot more topics for us. We'll do one more final one maybe in December to wrap up the year. But this was a pleasure as always, man. Anything that the listeners should look out for specifically from you at the Fried Egg over the next week and a half or so for the Open?
Be doing normal. Like I've been writing the newsletter and that kind of stuff. I should have a Q&A coming out. We'll see if that comes to fruition with a player who's playing in the event. So cool. Maybe that, but nothing crazy.
Cool. Awesome stuff, buddy. It was a pleasure as always. Thank you for joining me, and cheers.
Thanks. Cam Young versus Corey Connors.
Well, I'll follow up. That's a real thing. Cameron. Thanks, Joseph.
Thanks, Andy.